Let's talk about Japanese building materials. Now, we have to keep in mind when we look at building materials, architecture, any other element of Japan that this is an island nation and a very densely populated island nation. The downfall of any island nation is going to be resources. You have a finite amount, even trees. You can deforest large areas. Look at Italy during the Roman Empire, where you see deforestation that we still see the impact of today. There really aren't massive forests in Italy anymore because all of that wood was used during the Roman Empire. So we run into that issue, and we're going to see that in Japanese architecture, design, interiors, and building materials. Now, stone, of course, you would think is available to everyone. The problem with stone in Japan is because it's an earthquake zone, a lot of that stone is cracked or unstable. So we don't see a lot of massive stone architecture coming out of Japan. It's just a weak material. It has to do with the local geography. Now, in certain parts of Japan, it works out a little bit better than in others, but it's still not going to be a really common material like we would see, for example, in Southern Europe. However, wood is fairly plentiful. And when they use wood, they are always very cautious of how they use it. They don't want to end up like Easter Island, again, deforesting their entire island area. So instead, they will take only the wood that they need. They become very, very efficient with its use. And importing wood is something that really isn't done in Japan for the vast majority of their history. Instead, what they do is they focus on the idea of reuse and restoration. So, for example, many of their temples, including the Shrine of Amaterasu, which we looked at last time, will be rebuilt on a regular basis. This is because wood has a finite lifespan, but also it allows them to take as much of the wood as possible that's still salvageable at that point and clean it up. Add new preservatives to it, oils, etc., that will preserve it for an additional, say, 20 years, and then go ahead and work with it again. So we see this idea of restoration of structures. It builds communities, and it allows them to most efficiently use the materials that they have. Again, we see this at the Shrine of Amaterasu, where it is going to be rebuilt every 20 years. They also become very good at recycling materials. Now, whereas, for example, in China, they will take roof tiles off a building and simply destroy them because they can always make more. China is a huge area. The Japanese, instead, will typically take them off and try to recycle as many as possible. They'll be very careful. This is more architectural salvage than what we would typically think of as recycling, because they're not usually breaking down the material and making it into something new, but oftentimes they will simply remove it, clean it up. They might reglaze it, dry it out, reglaze it to be something a little more up to date, but then they'll reuse it. They do the same with wood, they do the same with stone. Pretty much all materials that they use will be reused, restored, or recycled in some way. So it's very, very common in Japan, and it comes from that island geography that they're living with.